That moment was utterly bonkers, man. My heart was pounding like a drum solo on fast forward. I felt this insane tug in my gut, a feeling I hadn't even known was missing until right now. This dude, this stranger standing here, was a spitting image of my own damn youth, down to the crooked way he held his shoulders. Was this really the kid we left by the roses all those years ago? Every nerve ending was lit, completely fried, because the air around us was so thick with unspoken history it felt physical. I wanted to bail, to bolt, but my feet were glued to this spot like a total schmuck. His eyes held a question that cut right through my soul, demanding an answer that could either save or destroy me. What if he already knew the ugly truth of our secret? Anthony first saw Lisa at a dive bar downtown, and she was like totally chill, nursing a flat soda while everyone else was hammered. She had this electric energy that made every other woman look like a total zero. He knew instantly he had to talk to her, risking looking like a complete tool in the process. He never anticipated how one cheap drink would lead to absolute chaos. Their connection was instant, a real slam dunk romance straight out of a corny flick. They were inseparable, staying up all night talking smack and dreaming up ridiculously grand plans for the future. Anthony thought they were truly soulmates, cruising through life with no fear and thinking everything was hunky-dory. But fate had a nasty surprise waiting just around the bend. The honeymoon phase ended abruptly when the eviction notice arrived. They were completely wiped out of cash and hope. Lisa tried to keep Anthony from completely losing it, but the pressure of being utterly broke was a monster in the room. Suddenly, all those grand plans felt utterly ridiculous, nothing but empty bluff. How could two people so in love sink so low so fast? Then Lisa whispered the news. She was pregnant, and Anthony's mind went into complete meltdown mode. Everything hitting the fan at once. He should have been stoked, but all he could see were bills, poverty, and an overwhelming sense of doom. He tried to stay upbeat for Lisa, but the reality check was a punch to the gut, a total shocker. They were barely surviving themselves. How could they possibly raise a kid? They spent weeks trying to figure out a plan, tossing around wild ideas that were completely off the hook and unrealistic. Anthony even considered a sketchy side hustle to earn fast money, but Lisa shot it down instantly, saying it was too sketchy. The only thing they could agree on was that the baby deserved a life that wasn't this ghetto nightmare. What desperate final measure would they resort to next? When their son was born, he was tiny and perfect, a little guy with 10 fingers and 10 toes, and they named him Leo, which was totally legit. Looking at him made them realize the gravity of their situation, that their lives were completely messed up. Lisa held him close, tears streaming, calling him her perfect little munchkin. That night, they knew they had to make the impossible, heartbreaking choice. The decision to leave him wasn't rash. It was agonizing, a complete train wreck of a choice made from twisted love. They felt like utter dirtbags, but they rationalized it as the only way Leo could have a shot at a decent life. Anthony kept saying it was no biggie, but his eyes betrayed the lie, hollowed out and full of pain. The weight of this sin was something they would carry forever, a real bummer. Where would they even take him? They picked a lush, well-maintained neighborhood far from their slum, settling on a fancy house with a huge, sick front garden. It was the perfect spot, totally mint, looking like something straight out of a magazine, a truly idyllic setting. They parked the battered beater down the street, their hands shaking as they pulled the infant carrier out of the back seat. This felt like the biggest, most unforgivable fail of their lives. Lisa bundled Leo in a thick blanket, murmuring sweet nothings, promising him that this was temporary, a complete white lie to soothe her own soul. Anthony watched the street for any looky-loos, feeling like a thief pulling off a major heist. They placed him gently by a massive rose bush, praying someone decent would find their sweet little sprout. Could any amount of prayer excuse this betrayal? Speeding away, they didn't speak, the silence in the car feeling heavier than a ton of bricks, a complete drag. The immediate rush of adrenaline was replaced by a crushing, permanent sense of grief and regret, a serious downer. They felt like their entire lives had become a total wash, forever tainted by that one devastating act. They drove for hours, trying to outrun the shadow of their son. The guilt eventually ate them alive, causing their own relationship to become toxic and totally messed up. They started taking cheap shots at each other, the emotional exhaustion making them completely zonked. Anthony started drinking to feel less lame, and Lisa retreated into herself, a broken shell of her former self. It was only a matter of time before they called it quits. 35 years passed in a blur of regret, separate lives, and wondering if Leo was A-OK, a constant low-level dread. Lisa became a nurse, Anthony a mechanic, both never marrying, forever haunted by the missing piece, feeling like a couple of weirdos. Then, a simple call came from a private investigator who offered a major clue about Leo's whereabouts. Could they finally face the music after all this time? The investigator set up a meeting at a swanky cafe, saying Leo wanted to meet his birth parents, a request that left them completely shook. Anthony and Lisa sat there, sweating, waiting for the man who was their biggest regret, feeling utterly exposed. Then the cafe door opened, and a man walked in, locking eyes with Anthony, initiating the scene described in the very first paragraph. Now the real drama was about to unfold. The young man finally smiled, but it was totally awkward, like he was trying on a new face. He walked right up to our booth, extending a hand to me, which felt incredibly cringe. "I'm Leo," he said, and the name hit me like a bus. I just sat there, frozen stiff, feeling like an utter goofball. Was I supposed to hug the man I abandoned? He didn't wait for us to speak, just leaned in close, whispering, "It's no sweat, I know why you did it," and the investigator gave me the whole 9 yards. Lisa gasped, sinking deeper into the booth, her face going totally ghostly. "Poverty sucks, right?" he added, looking at me with an unnerving, knowing smirk. How could he be so calm about this seismic revelation? "Honestly, you guys did me a huge favor. My folks were totally rich and super rad," Leo continued, seemingly without a trace of bitterness. He told us his life was filled with dope vacations, and that he was now a successful lawyer, a complete baller. Hearing that they succeeded where we failed was a truly devastating blow. Did he truly hold no resentment at all? I finally found my voice, a raspy, useless sound, and choked out, "Leo, we were such lame-os, and I am so sorry." He cut me off, holding up a hand, saying, "Look, I just wanted to see if you were for real and if you were doing okay." Then he pulled out 2 expensive envelopes, saying, "I'm not holding a grudge, so take this and start fresh." What kind of bizarre twist was this? We stared at the envelopes. completely blown away by this unexpected, graceful generosity from the man we deserted. Lisa finally broke the silence, asking if they could ever just grab a simple cup of coffee, maybe tomorrow, just to hang out. Leo nodded slowly, a small, genuine smile replacing the former awkwardness, saying, "Yeah, I guess we can totally make that happen." This was not the end. It was the start of the most complicated fam reunion ever. We just sat there, clutching the envelopes, feeling like total posers who didn't deserve this kindness. Leo was so chill about gifting us what looked like a serious stack of dough. I tried to open the clasp, but my hands were shaking too bad, feeling like a complete wreck. What was inside that crisp paper meant for people like us? Lisa finally nudged me, whispering, "Anthony, you gotta open yours ASAP." Her voice a tiny, hopeful squeak. Inside, there were just 3 words printed on a card that made my blood run cold. The envelope held a check, a truly massive amount, but the note was far more unsettling. Did this note come with a hidden, awful price? Leo saw our terrified faces and sighed, looking totally beat, running a hand through his dark hair. "It's a peace offering, all right. No need to be so sketchy about it," he reassured us, slightly annoyed. He explained that his adoptive parents told him the truth, saying he was found with just a tiny stuffed animal. That little detail sent a fresh wave of panic through Lisa's chest. Was that all they had left him with? Lisa looked up, her eyes watery, asking softly, "Did they ever tell you why we left you there, by the rose bushes?" She was desperate for him to understand that specific, heartbreaking detail, that it wasn't just random, it was our spot. Leo leaned back, pausing for a dramatic beat, looking really intense. His answer was going to make or break this whole reunion. "They told me everything about that garden," Leo said, his voice dropping, getting totally real and serious. He confessed he went back to that spot every single year on his birthday, a total weirdo tradition. "And tomorrow at the coffee shop," he added, "I have one final thing to show you guys that I found buried there." This meeting was turning out to be more gnarly than any nightmare. We stared after him as he walked out, leaving us completely shook and feeling like total scrubs. The note in my check envelope read, "I buried it." I couldn't stop thinking about what that meant, feeling freaked out by the implication. This generous act was feeling way sketchier by the minute. We quickly realized we had to compare notes, and I told Lisa the horrifying truth. "I don't remember burying a damn thing. It's a complete blank." The contrast between the massive baller status check and the sinister message was a total mind-bender. Why gift us fortune, only to hint at some dark past? Lisa's expression was grim, confirming the twist, saying her note read, "It was worth it." That chilling message made the whole situation extra weird, hitting us like a ton of bricks. We realized Leo was playing a dangerous game, trying to throw us off our game. We needed to find out what he was hiding, and fast. We stumbled out of the cafe, the noise of the street feeling completely overwhelming after that intense chat. We were totally drained. We drove to a quiet flea-bag motel on the outskirts of town, needing a safe space to hash out the serious drama. We couldn't believe our successful son was a masterful manipulator, a real snake. The huge check lay on the polyester bedspread, looking utterly out of place next to the cheap furniture, a total joke. We couldn't focus on the dough. We were obsessing over the 3 words. knowing this whole situation was too fishy. Lisa kept repeating her note, wondering if her message meant abandoning him was good for him or for us. I forced my memory to go back to the dark night, the feeling of the dirt, the frantic energy, but it was just a giant blur. Was I so amped up that night that I buried something terrible without even realizing it? The thought made me feel completely gross and seriously sus. What if the investigator knew about this too? Lisa looked at me with this terrified, crazy look, whispering that she remembered seeing me holding a small, dark object that night. She insisted it felt completely off limits and that I'd been acting like a total nut job. She couldn't see what it was, only that it looked heavy and gnarly. We spent the rest of the night going over the details of our breakup, trying to see if there was a dark secret that fueled our train wreck of a relationship. Lisa admitted she always thought I was keeping something major from her, which made me feel like an even bigger dirtbag. Maybe the buried thing was the root of all our suffering, a real downer. The next morning, we were totally ragged, running on pure adrenaline and cheap motel coffee, feeling like a couple of sleep-deprived outlaws. We agreed we had to get the lowdown on the buried item. There was no way we could back out now. We knew facing Leo was going to be the toughest, most sketchy confrontation of our lives. We drove back to the swanky cafe, feeling increasingly nervous as we got closer, my heart beating like a distressed beater engine. Leo was already waiting, looking completely fresh and disgustingly calm, which only made us more frazzled. His composure felt totally fake, a complete red herring. He didn't greet us. He just pointed at the table, where a small black velvet box sat next to his latte, which was totally tripping us out. This looks exactly like something you find on a true crime documentary, or maybe some shady old spy flick. This was no family reunion. It was an interrogation. "You guys ready for the big reveal?" he asked, his voice totally deadpan, devoid of any emotion, making the tension unbearable. He slowly, deliberately, reached out and popped the lid off the tiny black box, the sound echoing in the silence. This guy was seriously playing us for fools. Inside, the light hit something tiny, metallic, and surprisingly luminous, something that looked strangely familiar. It was a twisted silver ring, a cheap knick-knack that Lisa and I bought way back in the day, swearing to never take it off. It was a stupid, cheap symbol of our doomed love. But why was it buried? Then Leo carefully lifted the ring out and turned it over, showing us the inscription on the inside, 3 tiny, scratched initials. They were not ours, making the whole situation suddenly way cryptic and unsettling. The initials were JDC, and I instantly recognized them from somewhere awful. Whose ring was this, and what the heck did I do that night? I felt a wave of nausea, like getting hit by a haymaker, realizing where I'd seen those 3 letters before. A total flashback. They belonged to the landlord, old man Jones, a serious creep who always threatened to make trouble if we didn't pay the rent. Lisa, completely clueless, was still staring at the ring like it was a harmless toy. Did I actually hurt that lame guy the night we left Leo? I looked at Leo, whose expression was completely ice cold, not giving away a damn thing, acting like a total psycho. I finally managed to whisper the name John David Jones, and Lisa let out a horrified shriek. Leo just nodded, then pointed to the massive check on the table, saying, "That money is hush money, dude, and it's high time you earned it." Was the entire adoption a cover-up for something worse than abandonment? Lisa started panicking, a total freak-out moment, grabbing my arm so hard it left a bruise. She kept saying, "No way, dude," denying that I could ever do anything so seriously messed up. I felt this overwhelming urge to protect her from the awful truth Leo was laying out like a dirty road map. Was I capable of something I couldn't remember? My mind was racing, trying to figure out if I was just a complete head case with a convenient memory block about something so major. "That's Cap. I didn't kill anyone, I just pieced out," I stammered, feeling the sweat beat up on my forehead. Leo gave me that look again, the one that made me feel like a total chump. He knew I was lying, or at least unsure. My adoptive father was a serious heavy hitter, an actual boss, and he knew JDC very well, Leo finally explained, dropping a serious bomb on us. He said the man who found him in the garden wasn't just some random nice guy, but part of a shady deal already in motion. This whole story was turning into something out of a pulp novel. Leo revealed his adoptive father, the lawyer, was JDC's business partner, who was also looking to buy that dope house. JDC was a sleazeball who was holding the property hostage from the partner until his disappearance. The adoption wasn't charity. It was a way to seal the property deal, a total hustle. So Leo was the bait for the house? The "it was worth it" note Lisa received suddenly made sense. It was JDC's partner's message, saying the trouble was worth the house and Leo. Leo confirmed that his new dad found him and the ring and knew the whole lowdown. He said the partner was a true player who cleaned up my forgotten mess. This made our abandonment look almost trivial by comparison. I felt a wave of dizzying clarity, remembering Old Man Jones being a hot mess, always getting physical when we couldn't pay up. I suddenly recalled a brief, brutal struggle in the dark, a total scramble. I defended myself, hitting him with a brick I thought was just a rock. I didn't mean to kill him. I just wanted to get the heck out of there. Leo stared at me, his eyes demanding the specifics, saying, "So it was self-defense, not murder, but you still left him like a sucker." He claimed the check was just a payoff for our silence, a way to keep the past totally on the down low. He wanted me to tell him exactly where Jones's body ended up, a real buzzkill request. I don't know, man. It was a total blur. I just remember pushing him into the rose bushes, the same ones where we left you. I confessed, my voice sounding completely cracked. Lisa was weeping openly now, realizing the true horror behind our hasty departure. The silence was thicker than a milkshake, heavy with unspoken violence. Then Lisa, wiping her eyes, noticed something tiny glinting inside the black velvet box, a metallic item Leo had missed in his sloppy presentation. She reached in quickly, grabbing the object before Leo could react, a truly shady move. "What is this?" "It's another knick-knack," she muttered, her face a mask of shock. What other evidence was hidden in that box? It was a tiny, delicate brass key, old and worn, totally vintage, and clearly not for a regular door. Leo jumped up, looking completely stressed, yelling, "No, that's mine. It's not part of the deal." The look of genuine panic on his face was a serious eye-opener. What was so important about this tiny key? "This key opens the old shed near the garden, the one my dad tore down years ago," Leo admitted, his voice now a desperate, low growl. He said he found the key with the ring but had kept it secret, knowing it was the real treasure. The key was clearly the smoking gun, the item that held the true, deep secret. Leo demanded the key back, saying it contained proof that would completely expose his adoptive father's actions. He said the shed was full of J.D.C.'s illegal records, making the adoption look like a seriously dark conspiracy. This meant the adoption wasn't about the house, it was about the records. Lisa pocketed the key with a definitive nod, her fear hardening into a kind of grim, determined resolve, suddenly acting like a total badass. We're going to the garden now. We're going to use this key to get the scoop, she announced, grabbing my hand and pulling me out of the cafe. We had to find the shed's location pronto. We drove the beater back towards the old neighborhood, the high-stakes journey feeling like a complete trip, everything hanging on this tiny brass key. When we arrived at the site of the fancy house, we saw that the huge rose bush was still there, but a figure was standing by the garden gate looking completely on edge. The game wasn't just between us and Leo anymore. We had company. The guy at the gate was seriously jacked, wearing a slick suit that screamed private security, or maybe just a real boss. He didn't look happy to see our beater, sizing us up like we were total chumps. His posture was too formal for a neighbor, making the whole scene way sketchier. This was definitely someone connected to the lawyer, Leo's adoptive dad. He walked right up, blocking the path, his face completely deadpan, and asked, "Are you the ones Leo met with?" His voice was low and gravelly, sending a chill straight down my spine. A total vibe killer. He skipped the pleasantries, cutting right to the chase, demanding the brass key ASAP. We both knew we were in seriously deep water now. "Whoa, chill out, dude. We're just admiring the roses," I tried, laying on the thickest, most pathetic white lie I could manage. Lisa played along, pointing at the bushes, acting totally clueless and innocent, like a good little schmuck. It was a massive fail. The guy didn't even blink. Just then, Leo's fancy whip screeched around the corner, parking right behind our jalopy, looking completely heated. He stumbled out, yelling that he was totally losing it, shouting about the messed up key Lisa stole. This was officially a three-way high-stakes train wreck. The suited guy instantly grabbed Leo, realizing he was the key to this whole shady deal, totally freaking out. I took the distraction as my cue, grabbing Lisa's hand and telling her to bolt toward the rose bushes. We needed to get to the shed before we were totally sidelined. We ducked behind the massive bush where we left Leo years ago, our hearts pounding like a samba drum, feeling completely exposed. Lisa fumbled with the tiny key in her sweaty hand, desperately searching for the hidden shed door. She remembered Jones mentioning a broken garden grotto near his hidden stash. "It's back here, Anthony, by the old stone wall. I remember seeing a crumbling foundation," she whispered, her voice a terrified squeak. We scrambled over the overgrown weeds and broken stones, our progress totally slow-mo and loud. The guy and Leo were still yelling behind us, which was a real drag. Sure enough, tucked against the back fence, mostly hidden by ivy, was a small, ancient wooden door, looking completely ratchet. It wasn't a shed, it was a tiny cellar entrance, utterly decayed, with a rusted padlock hanging from the latch. This definitely looked like the hidden scoop. Lisa jammed the tiny brass key into the massive, rusted lock, her hands shaking, feeling completely frazzled. It took 2 agonizing, tense minutes, but with a horrifying creak, the lock finally sprung open. The sound was so loud it felt like a total fail. surely alerting the goon. We wrenched the door open, revealing a short, dark staircase leading down into the earth, smelling strongly of mildew and old secrets. "We have to go, no cap," Lisa hissed, pulling me down into the terrifying darkness, hoping the security guy was a total slowpoke. We were officially in the endgame now. At the bottom, a single dusty wooden crate sat in the middle of the room, looking utterly out of place and mysterious. Lisa didn't waste any time. She ripped the lid off, revealing stacks of manila files and a few cassette tapes, a serious motherlode of evidence. This was JDC's entire dirty laundry. The files detailed illegal land deals, tax evasion, and payoffs to corrupt officials, confirming JDC was a total sleazeball. But the top file contained a life insurance policy made out to Leo's adoptive father, confirming the murder was premeditated and way shady. Lisa gasped, saying, "That rich dude set you up, Anthony." Next to the files lay a single cassette tape, labeled in JDC's distinctive weirdo handwriting. The truth about the garden. My stomach dropped. This was the real deal, the one piece of evidence we had to hear. Could it hold the actual memory of that gnarly night? Just as Lisa reached for the tape player sitting on the crate, we heard a heavy, thudding sound from the top of the stairs, plunging the cellar into darkness. Someone had just slammed the door shut and locked it from the outside, a serious buzzkill. We were now trapped in a literal coffin with a killer's secrets. Lisa didn't even trip. She just grabbed the flashlight from the crate and the tape, inserting it into the ancient, dusty recorder, acting like a total pro. The sound of the lock turning on top of the stairs was the last thing we heard before the cellar was filled with a chilling, scratchy voice. It was John David Jones, and he sounded completely unhinged. "If you're hearing this, then I'm gone and the heist worked perfectly," the voice crackled, making Lisa and me exchange a terrified look. JDC explained that he was terminally ill and was trying to fleece his business partner, Leo's adoptive father, out of everything. This was his twisted, final masterpiece. He detailed his plan: stage his own murder, frame his partner for the life insurance money, and disappear to some dope island. He mentioned getting a desperate drifter who was his spitting image to take his place in the garden, a totally messed up plan that required a lot of dough. The two lamos who showed up that night were a gift from the universe. They were so frantic, I knew they'd bury the ring and bolt, the voice continued, dripping with arrogance. JDC confessed he'd already swapped the bodies and was long gone before I even grabbed the brick. I wasn't a murderer. I just helped stage a crime. As the voice played, the full, awful memory came flooding back, a complete flashback of the truth, finally making me feel A-OK and free. I had hit a dead man, already planted there, and in my panic, I only buried the ring, the final clue. The relief was so intense, I almost completely lost it. Suddenly, the heavy door above us rattled violently, and we heard Leo's voice yelling down, muffled and frantic. "Yo, are you guys chill? The security dude is coming back, ASAP." We realized Leo wasn't the enemy. He was trying to save us, hoping the commotion would draw the agent away. We needed to get out, no cap, and Lisa spotted a rusted, narrow vent high on the stone wall, covered by a piece of wood. I instantly grabbed the tape player and the files, handing them to her, whispering, "You gotta peace out with the scoop. I'll buy you some time, dude." Just as Lisa started cleaning the crate, the door above us burst open, revealing the suited security guy, completely heated and brandishing a crowbar. "That's a total fail, you dirtbags," he screamed, seeing the files, realizing he was too late, a real downer for him. I lunged forward, tackling the goon, screaming for Lisa to bolt with the tape, the files scattering everywhere, a complete scramble. The security guy was seriously jacked, but I had the adrenaline of a man who just found out he wasn't a killer after 35 years, making me feel seriously amped up. Lisa, now on the crate, shoved the files and the crucial tape into the vent, using the crowbar from the struggle to pry the vent cover completely open. She slid through, yelling, "I'm out, Anthony. Meet me on the other side, pronto." I managed to kick the goon and scramble back up the stairs, locking the cellar door from the outside, trapping the sleazeball inside the coffin with JDC's voice echoing around him. I ran around the stone wall, finding the vent exit where Lisa was waiting. Leo was there too, looking completely stressed, and he instantly hugged me. "Dude, I'm so sorry. I knew my dad was shady, but I had to see if you would come back for the key to prove he was setting you up," Leo confessed, his eyes full of genuine regret. He wasn't playing us. He was testing us. We were pawns in JDC's plot, and then in Leo's adoptive father's conspiracy. Two sets of rich dudes using our poverty and our mess up for their own selfish gain. The massive check wasn't hush money for a murder, but a bribe to stay quiet about the illegal land deals. A total red herring. The police showed up 15 minutes later. Leo had called them from the cafe, explaining the entire conspiracy to a contact. We turned over the tape and the files, feeling a sense of closure that was totally unreal. The 35-year secret was finally laid bare for the world to see. Anthony and Lisa took the huge check and decided to use it to buy a house with a huge garden, one they could finally share with Leo. They knew they could never make up for the abandonment, but they could build a legit future. They were no longer running from the secret. They were finally building a fam. They often meet at the rose bushes now, the place of their greatest mistake and their greatest salvation. The garden is no longer a symbol of betrayal and murder, but a testament to how even the most messed up beginnings can lead to a beautiful, complicated, and totally dope family ending. The garden son had finally come home.